The philosophy of absurdism is deeply rooted in the tension between humanity's inherent desire to find meaning in life and the universe's apparent indifference or lack of any inherent meaning. Absurdism, as a philosophical movement, is most closely associated with the French philosopher and writer Albert Camus, 1913–1960. Camus articulated these ideas through his essays and literary works, such as The Myth of Sisyphus and The Stranger. Let's break down this philosophy in detail for a 10-minute video. 1. Introduction to Absurdism. Begin by introducing absurdism as a philosophy that grapples with a fundamental paradox, the human need to find meaning, order, and purpose in a universe that is largely silent or indifferent to these concerns. Albert Camus' central idea of the absurd is that humans are meaning-seeking creatures living in a world devoid of inherent meaning. This creates an absurd tension, an irreconcilable contradiction between what we seek and what the universe offers. Mention that this tension doesn't lead to despair but opens up a pathway for a new way of living. 2. What is the absurd? Camus defines the absurd as the conflict between the human desire for clarity, purpose, and meaning and the universe's irrational, chaotic, and purposeless nature. A famous analogy from Camus: life is like asking questions in a universe that responds with silence. Humans seek answers to questions about the meaning of life, the existence of God, or the reasons for suffering. But the universe doesn't provide satisfactory answers. Example: imagine being at a loud party, trying to have a deep conversation. No matter how much you speak, the noise drowns out your voice. The absurd is this struggle: we keep talking, but the universe doesn't listen. 3. Responses to the absurd. Camus outlines 3 potential ways to respond to the absurd. A. Suicide. Camus categorically rejects this. Suicide, for him, is an admission that life is not worth living because there's no meaning. Camus argues that suicide is not a solution, as it evades the challenge of living with the absurd. B. Religious or philosophical leap of faith. Some people turn to religion or metaphysical systems to provide meaning, relying on faith in God or a higher order. Camus sees this as another form of escape. By embracing an unprovable or illogical belief to fill the void, you're essentially turning away from the absurd instead of confronting it. C. Acceptance or revolt. Camus' preferred response. Instead of denying or running from the absurd, Camus advocates embracing it. This means acknowledging that life has no inherent meaning, yet continuing to live fully and passionately in spite of this fact. He calls this the act of living without appeal. The Myth of Sisyphus. Camus' essay The Myth of Sisyphus is one of the most important texts in absurdism. It retells the ancient Greek myth of Sisyphus, a man condemned by the gods to roll a boulder up a hill, only to have it roll back down every time it nears the top, an eternal cycle of pointless labor. For Camus, Sisyphus becomes a symbol of human existence. His endless task parallels our struggle for meaning in a meaningless world. However, the key to Camus' philosophy is that Sisyphus is not a figure of despair. Camus imagines Sisyphus happy, because in his futile labor, Sisyphus finds a kind of freedom. He embraces his fate, his struggle, and thus rebels against it, finding purpose in the process rather than any ultimate outcome. 5. Living with the absurd. To live authentically in the face of the absurd, Camus says we must embrace life fully, despite its lack of meaning. This involves rejecting hope for ultimate meaning but also rejecting despair. Instead, we engage with life through passion, experience, and creativity. Camus calls for revolt, not in a political sense, but a rebellion against meaninglessness. He advocates for continuing to live, find joy in small moments, create art, and experience life, even knowing it will ultimately end in death. Example: you might compare this to appreciating art even when you know it will be taken down or forgotten someday. The beauty lies in the present, not in eternal significance. 6. Absurdism versus existentialism and nihilism. Absurdism is often compared to existentialism and nihilism. Nihilism holds that life has no meaning, and this can lead to despair or apathy. Existentialism, particularly in the work of Jean-Paul Sartre, argues that we can create our own meaning through our choices. Absurdism, however, differs from both. While it agrees with nihilism that life has no inherent meaning, it rejects nihilism's despair. Similarly, while it agrees with existentialism on personal responsibility, it avoids claiming that humans can truly create their own meaning in a cosmic sense. Camus accepts the inherent lack of meaning but argues that it's possible to live a fulfilling life within that framework. 7. Conclusion: why absurdism matters today. Absurdism offers a way to live authentically in a world where traditional structures, religious, political, and moral, may no longer provide satisfying answers to life's biggest questions. In the modern world, with increasing awareness of randomness, chaos, and existential crises, Camus philosophy remains relevant. It offers an approach to life that accepts uncertainty but encourages individuals to create meaning through action, experience, and engagement with life. Camus' philosophy isn't one of pessimism but of defiant joy, the idea that even in a world without ultimate meaning, we can find purpose in the simple act of living fully. Ending with a reflection, the point is not to find meaning, but to realize that the struggle itself is meaningful. In this struggle, we find our freedom and our happiness. Please subscribe and share to do good to others.